Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. Welcome back. We really appreciate you joining us. I have on the line a good friend of mine. Her name is Sofia Smallstorm. You've heard from her before, and of course you know her work, 9/11 Mysteries, Unraveling Sandy Hook in 2, 3, 4, 5 dimensions, and of course her work into geoengineering. Sofia, welcome back. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you, Sean. Very nice of you to have me.
Well, we're glad to have you. And Sofia, I've been on a couple radio shows lately that have really dramatic music playing at the beginning. It goes on for about a minute, and then you get the warm, dulcet tones of the voiceover coming in. And I feel like for this conversation with you, we should really play some dramatic music, and it should be Welcome to SGT After Dark with guest Sofia Smallstorm. We've got so much to talk about, but it's serious stuff, and I think the best way to summarize what we're going to be speaking about with Sofia, guys, is the technocratic takeover of the biological world. Sofia, where in the world should we begin?
Well, I want to begin with a book that I'm reading now called War of the Whales. It was written in 2014, and it is about these recent whale strandings, which actually it starts with events from 2000, where on the Grand Bahama Islands, well, there are more than one, whales started to show up and beach themselves. And after their heads, ended up in a lab in Harvard, and they did computerized tomography dissection, and they found that the ears and the tissues in the brain had all hemorrhaged, and these whales had experienced a pressure event. So I became interested in this because, the U.S. Navy has all of these warfare training range complexes scattered around the coast of America, the West Coast, the Gulf Coast, the Eastern Seaboard. They've got a big training range complex in Alaska. They've got one in Hawaii, and they deploy all kinds of experimental artillery, bombs, sonar, radar. They call it undersea warfare, and they even bring it to land. They'll use hundreds of toxic chemicals. They've got their bombing missions going, missile and torpedoes, underwater detonations in particular. And I also want to bring to everyone's attention, there's the oil and gas industry, exploding stuff underwater. And what happens to the animals when such explosions occur is explained not just by their biology, but by the construct of the ocean. There's this deep sound channel that exists that was theorized about in 1950 something. And it is actually, you could call it a platform. The temperature of the water and the amount of pressure changes in the ocean. And the deeper you go, the low frequency waves can be conducted more easily. So when dolphins and whales start communicating, and their heads and brains are incredibly complex, they have acoustic fats that transmit sound in what we would call their ears. And we have, for instance, an air pocket, and we have the tympanic membrane, and we have the ossicles. But basically, every frequency is registered on biological tissues as a mechanical force. And when these explosions are taken through the deep sound channel, which was an experiment conducted by Maurice Ewing, he had theorized, this was 1944, that there was this layer of the ocean that could transport sound. And this is what led to the Navy's use of sonar, active and passive. So 900 miles away from the USS Buckley, Woods Hole geophysicist Maurice Ewing had his own boat, the Saluda, back in 1944. And they dropped from the Buckley 4-pound bombs timed to detonate 3,000 feet below the surface. And these were high decibel, low frequency sounds, right? And Ewing, 900 miles away, could hear them with a hydrophone that he suspended off the Saluda. So when he heard the explosions over this expanse of almost 1,000 miles of ocean, he then knew that there was this deep sound channel in the ocean. And after that, the Navy just went wild. Now they could hear submarines of, the Soviet submarines. They could now use what was called passive sonar to detect movements and presence of the enemy in the ocean. And the thing is, they paid no mind to what it was going to do to ocean life. So the other huge surprise I got from this book was every cetologist, that would be an expert who studies whales and dolphins, all the people that we think are the stewards and the scientists who love marine life, the marine biologists, this, that, the best people, the top experts, they all emanate from the Navy. Because the Navy, in general, the military, studies biology, not because it loves it and admires it necessarily, because it seeks to understand how biological mechanisms work so that it can then imitate them technologically. And we've got lots of technology now being used by the government / the military industrial
nightmare,
corporatocracy, which is now a technocracy that is overseeing our lives and dictating to us what we must and mustn't do. And the ways that it's using technology to, some people just say spy on us, observe us, I prefer to say, and then learn how to deploy more technology to influence us. This is all part of the early scientific studies from the Manhattan Project, which continues to go on today.
Well, yeah, and let me just jump in for a quick second here and back you up here as it pertains to how you've begun the conversation talking about the U.S. military and the Navy. I just want to share this article with the audience and back you up here, Sophia. This is from the Liberty Beacon from March 24th, 2015, and the title of the article is, "The U.S. military is decimating everything in its path, including its own country. Military's endless and insatiable quest to expand and control the entire planet and everyone on it." Now, of course, everybody knows about Agenda 2030, at least our audience does. Agenda 21, Agenda 2030. And it's my understanding now that the United Nations has even expressed interest in chipping the global population by 2030. But let me just read a little bit to you guys from this article. "The full spectrum of conflict," quote, "includes the now ever-expanding field of electromagnetic warfare training. The Navy is already using the sea and airspace of literally every U.S. coastal state for its training, and in many of them, it's wargaming." Now, Sophia, we just saw that frightening missile test of the Trident missile test on the West Coast the other day, which was done at night so that everyone could see it. It was very public, and, of course, we think it was saber-rattling to threaten China and Russia. So, of course, I agree with you, the military-industrial nightmare is out of control. But back to this article. By way of example, the far northwest quadrant of the United States provides a clarifying example of what the Navy is doing, how government agencies tasked with protecting wildlands and wildlife are enabling and assisting its expansion, and how citizens are standing up to resist it in a country where military spending already accounts for 55% of all federal discretionary spending, and military expenditures are greater than all of the military spending of the next 10 largest countries combined. The Navy's domestic training footprint, along with other branches of the military, is growing ever larger and taking on frightening new forms. This article's a must-read, guys. Again, it's titled, "The U.S. Military is Decimating Everything in Its Path, Including Its Own Country." I just wanted to read that for folks to back you up, Sophia, so I'm going to turn it back to you now. But I completely agree with you. The U.S. Navy is at the head of the spear of the testing and of the experimentation to enslave really the global population and, of course, those of us who are quote-unquote American citizens.
Right, and the enslavement is going to eventually be by introducing their version of biological processes that they will have brainwashed us into believing are superior to the real thing that we were born with and that we operate with. So, to get back to the year 2000 in the Bahamas with these whales stranding themselves. Now, when whales and dolphins lose the ability to navigate, when they can't use, I call the deep sound channel the ocean party line. When there's noise going on in that deep sound channel that blows out their ears and brains, and they start having hemorrhaging and loss of functionality, they can't hunt. They can't communicate with one another. I mean, they're very social animals. They travel in pods. And if they can't hunt and they can't eat and they can't dive, they can't survive. So rather than be torn apart by sharks, they'll go over to the beach and they'll strand themselves where their body weight will crush them. Or if they're smaller, like the beaked whales or the dolphins, they will simply die of heat exhaustion and dehydration. So it's sad to me that right there in the vicinity of Great Bahama Canyon, March 2000, the same days that the multiple strandings occurred, you had the warship USS Karen videotaped off the islands. And the Karen's equipment was Mark 29 missile batteries, ASROC anti-submarine rocket launcher, Tomahawk cruise missiles, Aegis air and surface radar, and state-of-the-art hull-mounted sonar transmitters. So all I can do is just gasp at how bold they are and continue to be about not just decimating the life, but attempting to imitate it. So we have this word called biomimetics, which is animal-inspired technology. And the Navy turned biomimetics into bionics, which is a combination of the two words biology and electronics. So all of our beloved theme parks, marine parks, SeaWorld,
Yeah.
Scripps Institution of Oceanography, Woods Hole Institution of Oceanography, these were all put together. They were offshoots of the Navy. And at these theme parks, captivity allowed, the Navy experts, who included acousticians and linguists, to study these very complex animals. And I don't know if I have time to read from War of the Whales how absolutely intricate the head and bone structure of a cetacean is and how much they can process. For instance, a dolphin gives up to 2,000 clicks per second. It's called the creaking door sound. Mm-hmm. And each click that it emits is returned because it has the capacity to get the bounce back of the click. So in 1 second, you're doing 2,000 clicks, and it's hearing all of these and interpreting them before it makes its next decisions, right? Mm-hmm. That's a very complex operating system. And I'm just going to read this because it's incredible. So the heir to a banking family, John Lilly, he attended Dartmouth Medical School. He decided to go to Marineland, which used to be in Palos Verdes in California. And he put an electrode deep in a dolphin's brain and loaded it with voltage. So I'm going to read from the Whales book. As he gradually increased the electrical current to the probe, the animal began vocalizing in what Lilly called a dolphinese fashion. Deeper penetrations and increased voltage evoked a more exuberant vocalizing than I'd ever heard before. Whistles, buzzings, raspings, barks, and Bronx cheer-like noises were emitted. One time he mimicked my speaking voice so well that my wife laughed out loud, and he copied her laughter. Lilly constructed a lever that the dolphin could push with its rostrum, which is its beak, to activate the electrical charge itself. After pushing the lever faster and faster, the dolphin went into an epileptic seizure and died. What Lilly uncovered in the course of his experiments was that dolphins, when properly stimulated, were able to mimic human speech. Lilly left Marineland convinced that he had tapped into the whispering chamber of interspecies communication. Listening to the whistles, laughs, and barks of the electrically neurostimulated dolphin, he heard a voice calling to him across what he termed the air-water boundary separating humans from their cetacean cousins. Lilly had come to Marineland in search of a big brain of human-like complexity. What he discovered was a mind in the waters. And so this is what caused him to say that dolphins offer us this gateway to cosmic consciousness. Mm-hmm. And once he proclaimed that was the 1958 annual meeting of the American Psychiatric Association in San Francisco. Guess who jumped up and said, "We'll sponsor you"?
The U.S. Navy? Yeah.
Yeah. Lilly's first funder was the Office of Naval Research.
Yeah. Let me read this from Wikipedia. The U.S. Navy Marine Mammal Program is a program administered by the U.S. Navy which studies the military use of marine mammals, principally bottlenose dolphins and California sea lions. It's shocking because I heard you just mention the, what word did you use? You used a phrase, consciousness, right? A peek into
cosmic consciousness.
Cosmic consciousness. But of course, the criminal industrial complex doesn't give a damn about cosmic consciousness. They just want to have better weapons of war, and they're even interested in manipulating and using God's most beautiful creatures to that end. And it's just terribly disgusting because I think, these animals are probably far more intelligent than human beings. They don't have opposable thumbs, they don't have hands, they can't build aircraft carriers, but they're such glorious, glorious creatures. But of course, leave it to human beings, leave it to the U.S. Navy to try to manipulate those creatures into becoming weapons of war. Sophia, how disgusting. And now with their own sonar experiments in the Pacific Ocean and across the planet, they're killing these animals. They're causing the whales to beach themselves. And it's all disgusting. And, as it relates to the technocratic takeover of the biological world, how do we flush that out as it pertains to you and me and Agenda 2030 and chipping of human beings and geoengineering? I mean, it seems like these programs are vast, uncontrolled, and completely secretive, but the end game is total world domination by a global government.
Well, Sean, you said that the Navy doesn't really care about cosmic consciousness, and I would venture to say that it does, in that it wants to learn how to do that, and then become that. Mm. So, you're saying how does this all pertain to us? Well, we are all frequency receivers and transmitters. I mean, when you look at our tissues, there is a YouTube I put up on my blog, sofiasmallstorm.com, about auditory transduction. And it's a video graphics made by a medical illustrator, showing how the ossicles, those little bones, I think they're called the hammer, the anvil, and the stirrup, how they receive sound and then they amplify it, and it goes into your brain and it's interpreted. Well, ours is a very simple, it's so rustic compared to what dolphins and whales do. But cetaceans taught our militaries how to echolocate their enemies. And their animal life, biology is teaching technology everything about itself, because technology can take apart biology and study it and then reproduce it. So we are now in a bath of all kinds of new energies that don't occur naturally. And I can assure you that the Manhattan Project or the radiation biology venture program is very much ongoing and very, very interested in observing how we respond to what's going on. And eventually, as I've said on many interviews, not all of us are going to keel over from these various kinds of stress that we're experiencing, which are chemical in nature, they are physical in nature, they're mental and emotional, and also radiation, frequencies that include microwaves and ionizing radiation. So our bodies are trying to comprehend and adjust to this, because that's the nature of biology. Biology attempts, if it can't get rid of a stressor, it will start to adapt. And so I think it's that adaptation angle that very much interests this technocracy, so that it can eventually deploy what we become. Mm-hmm. It will become the orchestrator of life itself. And as I was explaining to you in our little pre-chat yesterday, the technocratic takeover of the world will come in the form of ruling human reproduction. We are going to be divided eventually into two kinds of human beings, the non-reproductive and the reproductive. And the non-reproductive human beings who will be hybridized, they will be the gender blurred, male, female, the new prototype of not a man and not a woman. They will be, I predict, in positions of power and influence. So their preferences and their decisions will override ours, those who remain reproductive and inclined to prefer that state of being as, the optimal for humanity. So we're going to get this division, and we're going to have social wars, psychological wars, spiritual wars going on between these two kinds of humans.
Yeah, it reminds me of our conversation about Bruce Jenner and transhumanism and the death of the male. They want to move us into this brave new world that Aldous Huxley wrote about, Sophia, and it's going to be a world in which they have total control over who reproduces and who doesn't reproduce. And the other thing is that as they move us into this world of transhumanism and technocratic total control, you had mentioned that they're emulating nature. Technology is emulating nature, and it reminds me of the DARPA robotics challenge. If anybody wants to take a look at those videos on YouTube, you're going to see some of the scariest DARPA robots, military robots out there that look like animals, that walk on four legs, that can run through the woods and never tip over even if you kick them. These are the animal robots that will be armed and help make our planet a prison planet. I think at the end of the day, this technocratic takeover of the biological world is rolling out to the end that these people want to be gods on Earth. They want to control Earth from beginning to end. They want to have an RFID chip in absolutely everything, not just your clothes, but every person, every piece of food, everything. They'll be able to track everything in real time, and it will be a living hell. If they're allowed to get away with this, Sophia, this will be a prison planet, a living hell on Earth, and I certainly don't want that for my children. Do you agree with what I've just said? Do you think it's going to get that bad? Or can we at least agree that that's the direction they want to take it?
Oh, yeah. I mean, Sean, they will get away with this, as you put it, because of our consent. Mm-hmm. And that comes from that legal schmeagle stuff that we were talking about in the previous show.
Yeah, so important, though. I mean, you really helped open my eyes to that. I'd heard a little bit about it before and read a little bit about it, but, we flushed it out, and I flushed it out even further with Anita. The United States is a corporation. I told you that I'd just seen the new James Bond movie, Spectre, and in that movie is everything that's going on in society today, but of course, the name of the secret corporate group that runs the world in that movie is Spectre. We don't really know what the name of it is in the world today. I guess Peter Dale Scott calls it the deep state, Sophia. I think it's so big and so interconnected, though, that it reminds me specifically of Spectre in that new movie. And of course, in that movie, they want to surveil the entire planet, and they take over the intelligence agencies of the world, right, by infiltrating them to essentially have the intelligence agencies be theirs, and they want to expand surveillance to, quote, protect the people. What's in that movie is exactly what's going on in the real world, but of course it's passed off by Hollywood as fiction. So that's where they're taking us. I completely agree.
Right. And again, we can only be taken if we agree to be taken. Mm-hmm. And we are agreeing all the time. We don't understand how much we sign away our consent. And that's, I think, what we have to build an awareness of in people. What are you really signing about? I mentioned to you the school situation. They can't force vaccinate people unless in the case of children being mandatorily vaccinated, unless their parents sign them up for a benefit. And if vaccination is part of the government benefit called school, then you get vaccinated. So this is, we still have some control. As you said yesterday, unbelievably, they look for our consent. Mm-hmm. It's part of their strategy, because then they have the proof. We have no say against what's happening to us if we have signed up for it.
Let me ask you, though, as it pertains to mandatory vaccinations and criminal Governor Jerry Brown signing of SB 277 into law, despite an absolute grassroots outcry from mothers and fathers and people with children that don't want the state-sponsored needle shoved into their beautiful newborn baby's arms. I made that mistake when before I was awake. We have children, and 2 of them got all the shots, and we're suffering. We're suffering a little bit from some vaccine damage, in my opinion, and it just breaks my heart. But my question to you is that you say that it requires our consent, and I agree with you, but in the case of SB 277, when the state overtly turns tyrannical and says, too damn bad, we don't need your consent. You know, you're getting the shots anyway. Even if you want to send your kid to a private school, this bill will affect you. Your kid can't go to a private school, a parochial school, a school you pay to send the child to, if you don't get the shots. How do we exercise our sovereignty and our liberty and not consent when the state says there will be criminal penalties if you do not comply?
Sean, it's in the first step of signing your kids up for schooling, whether it's private or whether it's public. Your option is to homeschool, but as Anita taught me a few weeks ago, if you sign your kids up for homeschool, you've just contracted with the government again. So your kids have to receive what the government deems appropriate in the course of schooling. So if vaccines are part of it, school comes with vaccines now. This is the new thing. So they're going to put medical clinics in schools, and they're going to have nurse practitioners sitting there with drugs and needles and psychiatrists that will, evaluate your child and recommend which drugs to give. I mean, it's all changing. They want the utter zombification, the utter submission of people in all parts of the world, and they're getting it by our consent. When we sign ourselves up or our children up for public benefits, you're going to have to take what comes with the benefits. So this first step is don't sign up for those things.
Now, you mentioned to me yesterday, and I think this is important, you mentioned an example of the insidious nature, right, the slippery slope into getting our consent. Even in the corporations, there are examples of the corporations essentially bribing their employees to do things that the employees might otherwise never choose to do. And it's an easy way to get people's consent. And specifically as it relates to vaccines, maybe you can share that story with us, but I just want to say as it relates to vaccines, as I said in the John B. Wells show just the other night, there will come a time for every citizen in this nation where you're going to have to find your line in the sand. And maybe for you it's the Second Amendment when they come for your guns. Maybe for you it is forced vaccination when they come for your children, to give your children the state-sponsored needle. There will be a line in the sand for you. And my question is, where is your line in the sand? Because the government, the state, keeps pushing. They keep pushing and they keep pushing. And if they continue to push and we continue to consent to their tyranny, we will live as serfs. And our children will live as serfs unless they just kill us all, which is also part of the plan. But can you share with us the example that you shared with me yesterday about corporate-sponsored tyranny and the slippery slope to gain your consent?
Right. I've been hearing that some companies, big ones, are offering end-of-the-year bonuses if you get a flu shot and donate a sample of your DNA. And the bonus is big, it's like $800, $900, $700, $1,000. So that would be your bonus if you, and these are not high-level employees that are being offered this. So, for people who don't make that much money, $800 at Christmas is really nice. Mm-hmm. And if all it takes is to stick your arm out and get a flu shot, because you see all around, you drive and you pass Rite Aid, and I see here in Spanish, such and such shot available for, free or $20.
Shingles. Get your free shingles shot today at CVS. I see those signs all the time. It kills me.
Right. And whooping cough, they have adult pertussis vaccines in order to protect the new baby in the family. The brainwashing is all around. So if you can get a shot at work and you're paid $800 or $1,000, and you also give a little bit of DNA. Who cares? This is how people look at it. It's all in the course of being cool, and being compliant is being cool. So this consenting, when you use the word citizen, I've learned from Anita that that's a very specific word. That means you are the property of the state. So then you say, no, okay, I'm a person. But that is a corporate thing now. That's how they've redefined person. So you can't even say I'm a person. Notice all these transgenders are calling themselves a person. They don't call themselves a man or a woman. So we have to find a term. So far they haven't put human being in some kind of, legal definition. The word being, I think, is the essence of it. They'll eventually put humans in some legal definition. They'll make it part of their code. Mm-hmm. But we have to, yes, like you said, draw the line in the sand, choose where we're going to step or where we aren't going to step. But we also have to know that each time they come after us, they're looking for our consent. That's still the case.
Let me ask you this. And for the audience, you guys may appreciate this. Have you seen the spots? I'm sure you have. The pharmaceutical spots for the drug called Humira?
Oh, yeah.
Let me share this with you. I think this is much like I think it was called Happy Fun Ball on Saturday Night Live. They used to do this fake commercial on Saturday Night Live probably a good 15 years ago. It was popular. And Happy Fun Ball, it was just hilarious. Maybe I could find it and play a clip. But discontinue use of Happy Fun Ball if any of the following occurs: nausea, vertigo, vomiting, blood in the stool, sudden death. And it was a joke. But now in the Humira commercials, right, which is an Abbott Pharmaceuticals product, the disclaimer in the commercial, right, and generally they sell this product as something that can clear up your red blotchy skin, right? So if you have psoriasis or some of the other things, I guess it's also approved for rheumatoid arthritis, Crohn's disease, and some of these other things. But the side effects that they state in the commercial include:
Humira can lower your ability to fight infections, including tuberculosis. Serious, sometimes fatal events such as infections, lymphoma, or other types of cancer have happened. Blood, liver, and nervous system problems, serious allergic reactions, and new or worsening heart failure have occurred.
Who in God's name would want to go and ask your doctor about Humira if the side effects potentially include rare forms of cancer, Sofia, just to clear up your red blotchy skin? It's absolute lunacy. And now this state, the state of California, wants to, with a straight face, tell parents to just trust us with the state-sponsored needle and trust the big pharma companies, which have blanket amnesty against lawsuits for when you get damaged or your children get damaged. Just trust us because we're the benevolent, loving government and we care about you. And so do the corporations. Is there anything more disgusting than the example of these Humira commercials on TV? It's stunning.
Well, remember what people are looking at. As they hear all that, it's just words to them. They're looking at a picture of a nice lady in somebody's hands that look smooth and nice and move nicely after a while. But all this nice, these nice images, that's what's programming their subconscious. So the subconscious isn't taking in the cancer and the this and the that. It's just taking in these nice images of this nice person.
I know, but I worked in marketing. I've made commercials. I mean, it's stunning. Can you imagine if you were the ad agency tasked with having to market this product and they said, well, in the 1-minute commercial, 25 seconds of it needs to talk about the possibility of lymphoma and rare forms of cancers? I mean, it's stunning. How would you even pull that commercial off? Oh, we go to a beautiful little island with a log cabin and we shoot pretty people in slow motion. That's about all they can do, right? And it's just stunning to me that people can't listen. If they can't hear, if you're literally seeing those commercials and then going to your doctor and asking your doctor if Humira is right for you, you got big problems. You got big problems because you really need to listen better and you need to open your eyes, because these big pharma companies are not on the side of humanity. They're on the side of profits, right? Because this whole thing is a corporation. That's how we tie this all together. The whole thing is a corporation, and the very definition of fascism is the government in bed with corporations, which is why SB 277 got signed into law.
Well, Sean, that was very good, that quick rapid fire delivery. But corporations contract with one another, and they contract with us as sub-corporations, mini corporations, through our straw man. And the real problem is we're not aware of that. We don't know that we're contracting with these people on their level as corporations ourselves. And in that contracting, we are not aware of the true terms and the real meaning and significance and the ramifications of what we're doing. So full disclosure has not been made. That remains our power.
Mm-hmm. All right, well, before we lose you, let me ask you about this one final topic, and as it relates to the technocratic takeover of the biological world. Given your research, I know that you believe this is true. I just think we need to touch on it. How important is the topic of geoengineering in this technocratic takeover of the biological world?
Well, geoengineering, pertains to so many different levels of life. I mean, it's weather manipulation, weather control, but it's also creating and introducing biological and other fibrous substances that are man-made into let's just call it the tissues of biology and the soils. It's changing the pH of soils. Mm-hmm. They're able to, by spraying certain things in certain places, they're able to completely change the nature of what's able to be farmed there. And they can mix and match and do anything they want. And the thing is, we are sitting here, this stuff is raining down on us, and it is without our consent. That part, but as long as they don't admit to it being done at all, and they simply propose it as something we're going to have to do in order to combat this global warming or global dimming or climate change or whatever, they'll eventually get our consent. And then that consent will be applied retroactively.
There are multiple programs being carried out through geoengineering, aren't there?
Yes.
Yeah, because I'm thinking about how they are changing us or trying to change us, certainly change social norms in terms of gender and gender roles, and then they're carrying out, I think, a form of eugenics through reducing fertility in men in the Western world. Fertility rates are plunging. Then there's the Morgellons issue that some people are experiencing. We think it's from geoengineering and the fallout. It could be a form of nanotech that's being introduced, and only some people are susceptible. I'm not sure, but the bottom line is they are changing us, aren't they? They are changing. They're actively changing our DNA. Then you've got the radiation issue in there, and of course now the NRC is saying that a little bit of radiation is hormesis. It's good for you. The idea of hormesis being that a little bit of anything is actually good for you in too large of amounts, though it may hurt you. So in the case of radiation, we're going to now say that a little bit of radiation is good for you. They are changing us, aren't they? They're trying to actively change human DNA into their own image.
So that it falls within their ability to regulate it and control it and make it work. I mean, they want to be the operators. And to that end, I think it's very important that we boost our biology as much as possible. And I'll tell you, I have never had as many sales of iodine as I'm having now. I've got 3 kinds of iodine in my online store, avatarproducts.com, and I've got 2 kinds of magnesium, the cream and the spray. And those, if you start doing basic mineral supplementation, you're going to start experiencing a return to some kind of, fortitude, which affects you mentally, and that affects you psychically and spiritually and all the rest. But we have to have this basic awareness of the fact that, we're being experimented with. And I don't know that it's completely to annihilate us. It's to definitely give us challenges such that we adapt in certain ways, and then those forms we will self-select. And the forms that survive these stresses will be chosen to be built into the technocratic recreation of humanity, which is what they're calling Humanity 2.0.
Mm-hmm. I love this conversation. You and I are so on the same page because I personally believe that they are trying to reshape humanity in their own satanic vision through their own satanic lens, and they're manipulating the DNA, and it's just a sad state that we're in, Sofia, and I know that you're doing great work to expose them on every level, from their 9/11 false flag to their Sandy Hook false flag, which I think you deemed a FEMA capstone event, to the technocratic enslavement through geoengineering and radiation. And your work is exhaustive, and I really appreciate your voice. And I guess, guys, I would ask you to support Sofia. Visit her site, Avatar Products. Is it avatarproducts.com, Sofia?
Yeah, that's my store.
Mm-hmm.
And I keep putting in things that I've discovered. There's a little stretch bag there for shopping. It is a wild, amazing product. You can crumple it up and put it in your pocket. It's great for guys. Take it with you to the store and it expands and it holds up to, honestly, over 25, 30 pounds. They had to put 25 pounds on the tag because it was scaring people. And the prototypes I saw are 50 years old. The thing will last. It's indestructible.
Well, that's cool. And guys, Sofia handpicks the products there at avatarproducts.com. Natural ways to boost your immune system and to, try to shore up your biological health against the onslaught of the New World Order that clearly is actively engaged in hurting all of us and our children. Take an interest in your health. Eat right, work out, take steps to keep yourself healthy, because we know that the powers aligned against us just want us sick. They want us sick and dependent on their Western medical systems, which, again, give you more problems than they help you. Our guest has been the one and only Sofia Smallstorm. Sofia, thank you so much.
You're very welcome. And Sean, I just want to add that the stuff I have in the store is cheap. There are cheap ways, very inexpensive ways, very affordable ways of rebuilding yourself. That's what I like about all this.
Yeah, well said. And Sofia Smallstorm has been our guest. And Sofia, thank you so much, and let's keep in touch.
We will, definitely. Thank you, Sean. That was a very nice interview, and I enjoyed it, and I'm glad that maybe we've helped in our own ways to make this go a little better for everyone.
Yeah, well, we need voices to combat the people that are trying to annihilate humanity, and that's all we're trying to do here. So thanks for tuning in. Thanks for your support at SGTreport.com, thelibertymill.com, and thephaser.com, where our promise to you is real news 24/7. God bless.